A powerful 100-watt battery-powered RGB LED light that can last almost an hour at full power. Is it too good to be true? I'm going to be honest, this product has been launched for a little while now, and this review has been in the works for a little while now. After I received the unit, after Zhiyun sent it over to me, I have been consistently kind of out on shoots doing other things, and to be honest, it just kind of worked its way into my daily kit, and I sort of forgot to put the review together at all. But that's enough of that. Let's start off by looking at some of the features this light has. The Zhiyun C100 is a 100-watt RGB LED light in a stick or sort of single-face tube arrangement. They send it out in a nice carry case, as they do with quite a few of their products, and I do appreciate when there's space for all of the different things, like there's space for the DC power supply, for the barn doors, the diffusion sock, the grid, the little stand clamp adapter. So all of that comes in the combo kit, but both the combo kit and the standard kit do come with the bag, although there are some differences obviously between the two of them in the other accessories that you get. The standout feature for me has got to be the output level, the intensity that the light is capable of, and the battery life. This is claimed to be, I think, 54 minutes, if not, I'll correct just here, at full power. But that can increase to over 6 hours when you're using the light at lower intensities. Taking a little bit of a look around the light, there are 2 control knobs, a power switch, and a mode selector, and that's all you get in terms of controls to dial through all of the different settings. And aside from the internal battery, you can also power this via DC power, which they do send a DC power brick along with the combo kit, or via a USB-C connection. So if you go with the standard kit, you'll be charging it via USB-C, and you'll also be powering it via USB-C if you want to use it hardwired. But that works just fine as long as you've got a USB-C adapter that can output a good number of watts, then you'll be able to charge and power this no problem at all. As with other Zhiyun products, it is possible to control the unit with the ZY Vega app, and indeed I've been doing that quite a lot and pairing it up in groups with all the other fixtures that I use on shoots. I think the inclusion of a diffusion sock with this and the grid is actually a really good idea, and it's nice to see. The diffusion basically increases the size, the aperture of the light source, which will, at the same distance, assuming everything else is equal, make it somewhat softer as a result. I'd also note that on the front face of the light, without the diffusion sock on, the LEDs are already very well homogenized, and they don't really kind of stick out. You know, some lights you look at and you can see the individual LEDs. This has quite a nice homogenized look to it. So adding the sock doesn't homogenize it much more, but it does give you the softer look because it increases the size. Other LED fixtures that I've used in the past, not this one, have needed a bit of diffusion in front of them in order to homogenize the LED array and make it nice and blended together and soft and not like tons of little specular points of light. Moving on to the grid, it fits really nicely and it's been well thought out. It's got tabs on the side to help cut out light from all of those angles where it might escape. I remember years ago, like, I used Kino flows, and if you wanted to cut the light that was coming out the sides of the Kino flow, you had to buy like third-party accessories called bat wings that would go on the edges. This has all of that built in, and it just gives you a nice, quick, easy way of gridding your light and keeping the light focused where you want it to go. It's worth noting that these 2 accessories must be used with the barn doors, so you've got to use the barn doors with the diffusion sock and with the grid, otherwise you've got no way of particularly fitting them because they kind of slip over the barn doors. The barn doors themselves are really quick to fit or take off. It's kind of a friction fit, it just pops on and adheres to the shape of the light. I've never felt like they're going to pop off. It doesn't require any tools, so it makes it really easy just to switch up your setup as you need to. It's perfectly possible to use the unit without the barn doors attached, and actually it could be really useful if you're intending to use the light as a practical in shot, you know, dressing it in to serve a role within your frame. The very first project that I got to try this out on was a week-long shoot on a food series in Tuscany. For various different setups, I ended up relying on this as a backlight for some night exterior shots. I ran it entirely on battery power for this, and I think we had it on constantly for about 5 hours at a fairly low intensity. So the fact that I was able to work like this was very useful. I didn't have a crew with me. It was basically myself, a director, and a sound guy. So I was sorting out all of my own lighting. So not needing to run lots of distro meant that those setups and breakdowns, importantly the breakdowns, can't forget about those, were much, much quicker. And interestingly, in those night exterior setups, I also made use of the candle effect to help give the feeling that the light source was being motivated from the open grille that our presenter was using in the shot. So that was quite nice to make it feel like bedded in and give it a little bit more life. And it wasn't something I really thought about before that shot, but when we were standing there and I was looking at the light coming off the fire, I was it'd be nice if this could match, and the setting was there. So yeah, nice that they include it, but not something I'd really considered before. Alongside those night exteriors, for 2 days we actually had to set up in a barn because there was lots of heavy rain prevented us from filming outside. I actually used the C100 as the key light. I set up with a big 2-meter diffusion fabric, and it was all kind of a little bit impromptu because we hadn't particularly bought a big set of grip with us or anything. In that sense, we were all just flying out and doing the shoot. So this diffusion fabric mounted on a C-stand, and then I had like an impromptu book light with the C100 firing into the wall and then into the diffusion, and that was creating the feel of a soft push of window light from the right hand side of frame, and you can see the windows down the rest of the frame there because I had all of my other Zhiyun lights, the more powerful hard light sources, G300s and the B500, acting as sunlight in the background coming through the rest of the windows. So it all gelled together really, really well. This was a much bigger lighting setup than I had intended to do on the shoot, but the fact that I was able to fit all of these Zhiyun lights into a bag like this big and then do a fully lit big scene with a very deep background with 3 shafts of light coming in the back, that was just craziness. I wouldn't have been able to imagine doing this a few years back, where to achieve a similar look I would have been using something like, I don't know, aperture 600Ds and carrying 3 of those plus, I don't know, a 300D for the key light or something. There's just no way. There's no way that I would have had that level of firepower with me. But now, in a very small bag, I could take all of this stuff out with me and it's just there if we need it. In this particular situation, I was actually not running the C100 off battery power. I was cabled in, we took the time, we ran the distro because we were going to be in there for 2 days, and I needed the power for the other fixtures as well. So I think that it's an interesting use case because it had enough punch to be able to compete with those harder lights acting as sunlight in the background and still give enough. In fact, I didn't even have it up at full. It was nowhere near full, but diffused and bounced, it was still powerful enough to sit within that scenario. And I think it looks gorgeous. I'm very, very pleased with the way the shot worked. And if I hadn't had that C100 with me, I'd have had to compromise on the background a little bit using one of the other bigger lights to do the key light. After Italy, I have taken this out on several other projects. I'll just give you a really quick rundown and show you some of the shots from these. First up, a promo for Duke snowboards. This definitely flexed the more RGB side of what the light is capable of, and on this shoot I managed to actually do a couple of fun things, like I mounted one of the C100s up on a steel joist with a little magnetic mount that I've got, and that was running on battery power. In fact, all of the lights that I was using were running on battery power for this. I just went completely battery powered. So once it was up there, I was just using the ZY Vega app to dial in the color that I wanted and the intensity and level it for the different shots. I had a second C100 feeding in just a little bit of clean white light. This is an interesting thing actually. If you are doing something with very saturated light, it is useful to have something in there that is being hit by clean, like white lights at whatever color temperature you're wanting to at 5600, 3200, and it'll depend on the color temperature that you're looking to achieve and the color cast you're looking to achieve. That gets a little bit more complicated, but in principle, by having that clean light in there, it helps to make the other colored light sit a little bit better and not feel just like a wash, if that makes sense. And Yeah, so I was using that second C100 to do that, and then I had a smaller X60 RGB placed in another room, firing through it as a kind of hard light source into the area we were filming. Up next was a Halloween horror film at Berwick House, and the C100 was mixed in with various other lights for that, and I found myself particularly reaching for this, I guess, when we were having to move fast. Again, very small crew, it was just me and an assistant, and in that scenario there were some shots we needed to grab in various different rooms, and taking all of the big lights through and setting them up and powering them, it would have just started to take more time than we had. So being able to take a C100 through, fire it up into the ceiling, create a little bit of a blue cast to the room, take an X60, place it down the hallway, create a little bit of warm light down the hallway. Between those two lights, I was able to achieve quite a lot and keep the pace of the shoot up and make sure we achieved all of the shots. So again, thumbs up on that. Different scenario, but it worked really well. And then in November, I shot a few scenes for a short film in Bristol. Again, zero crew on this, it was just me, it was an overcast day, and I thought I'd take the C100 along, we were filming in the park, because I reckoned that it would probably have enough punch for me to sculpt a few of the close-up shots that we needed to get of the talent, and to, importantly, put a little catch light in their eye. Catch lights are interesting because if you have a light in the eye, then you're able to crunch down the rest of the ambient light a lot more than you perhaps otherwise would, because there's something for people to look at. They can really key into it and they can see where they're meant to look, and it doesn't look dingy. If you don't have that catch light in there and you crunch everything down, yeah, it can still work. I'm not saying you can't do that, but it just feels like it was perhaps a little bit more run and gun, and it wasn't as sculpted and it wasn't as thought out, and it's a little bit messy, maybe is the way it looks on a more budget shoot. So having this in there, it actually had tons of power, by the way. I didn't even have to use it 100%. So using that with the diffusion sock, getting it onto one side of the talent, crunching down the other side, gives you that dark light look and puts that catch light in there, worked perfectly. And it was all like handheld stuff. You know, I skated to the shoot carrying C100 and my camera bag and my cine saddle, and that was it. So it worked out really nicely in that scenario. The final thing I worked on was a commercial for the RLSS. This was a night shoot with one of the crew member who was also helping to sort sound, and I needed to light some really large sequences by a canal. We were dealing with very deep backgrounds, you know, seeing off into the town. Now for this, I used a couple of different lights. For the most part, the C100 was the key light. I keep pointing behind me, by the way, because it's actually doing this as well. The C100 was the key light for most of these shots. And then I had the Molus B500 in a 90cm softbox up high on a stand doing a big push of backlight. And that backlight with the wet ground, because we'd had some rain, actually gave a really nice amount of level over a large area. Very effective, you know. I was really impressed. That was at 100% that light, but it covered a big area and it gave us an important amount of definition to our subjects. Without that, we would have had darkly lit subjects against a very dark background. It would have been practically pitch black with just a few points of light of the town in the background. So having the B500 up there and then the C100 as the key light, sometimes through a bigger like pop-up diffuser, sometimes we used it direct, it depended on the shot, but the battery on that lasted 8 hours of shooting, admittedly with some powering off when we were taking breaks or changing setups. But it's really impressive for me that in a setup like this with minimal crew, it kept everything workable and allowed me to retain control of the light and make sure we always had clean light for skin and something in the talent's eye. And we weren't having to completely run and gun it and just go with available light, which would have been bad in this situation because there were loads of mixed color temperatures of all kinds of different things, and the area that we're in actually had a really big sodium vapor, very orange light just coming across the whole scene. So augmenting in the C100 cleaned up the light that was on the talent's skin and just helped us retain some idea of skin tone and that kind of thing, because with a sodium vapor you're not going to get that nice rendition of skin, and it would have taken on a very different character. So after using it on all these different shoots over a few months, are there any downsides that I found to the light? I have a couple of minor things that I think could be tweaked actually. First off, in my opinion, barn doors should always be matte black. Here they are silver reflective material on the inside, and that kind of makes sense for the diffusion sock setup, but it doesn't make so much sense for them as barn doors. Now they do cut the light kind of going straight ahead, but then they will actually end up reflecting light off at odd angles because of the silver material on the inside. So that does limit their usefulness as barn doors for me. Now I think Zhiyun are looking at this from a different point of view, and it does tend to be the case that these types of barn doors are used on more cost-effective light fixtures. I don't know why, but it just always has been. But that is something that I would definitely change. Having those barn doors black just gives me a little bit more control, and I want the control. The second tweak that I would make is, this is a solid unit, you know, it's well made, it is really firmly put together, but it does have some heft. Now the clamp that you get with the light on the combo pack does work really well, and it fixes on nice and solid, never been worried about it falling off, but it only has 1/4 screws as mounting points. Personally, I would really love a version of this clamp that has a baby pin receiver on it instead, or in addition to those 1/4 mounting points. It would make the rigging of this fixture so much easier on the kind of light stands that I use, and I feel like the size of the light warrants it. And if I was to go one step further than that, going back to Kinoflows actually, Kinoflows used to have this sort of ball mount attached to a baby pin receiver, and I think that that would actually be great because you could articulate the light in loads of different orientations and be able to quickly and easily mount it to different light stands in different places. Yeah, that would be the best in my opinion. Aside from those tweaks, which I've actually just realized saying this, on the accessory side rather than the actual light fixture itself, the light has performed really well. The build quality is excellent. The price for the combo kit that I've been using and you've seen in this video is in the UK £429. And if you don't need the grid or the power brick or a couple of the other things that are in the combo kit, you can save some money and get the standard package. So for those prices, it's a really compelling offer. It's versatile enough to fill many different roles and will continue to be useful even if you get bigger lights in the future. And I think that plays out on my own projects as well, where I've used it to fill different roles depending on what other lights I'm using and what the shooting scenario is. And that makes recommending it even easier because it's something that's going to grow with you as you progress, and it's still going to find a niche, you're going to find something that you can use it for, even if you do acquire other bigger lights along the way. If you have any questions, drop them down below, and if you're interested in purchasing, I do have some affiliate links. Zhiyun did set me up as an affiliate for this. It helps support the channel, but I do always try and remain impartial. It's one of the reasons why my reviews take a little while to come out. I don't just get a free product and put it on in my room and look at it and go, yeah, that's fantastic, I got something for free. Here's my review, it's great. No, I actually take it out and I use it on real shoots, and I get to know it a little bit first, and I get to try and learn where it fits into different setups. So that's why sometimes my reviews do take a little bit longer to come out, and it's why I chat so much in my reviews, because I have a lot to talk about with it and I want to make sure that I represent accurately what the product does. So yes, that's all to say, if you do want to support the channel, you can buy through those affiliate links below. Any questions, drop them below as well. I'm happy to answer them.